moving the conversation now towards a little bit on the node centralization. So in some of my research, I've seen that I've dug into the top two ecosystems being Ethereum and Solana. And what I've seen is that their node infrastructure are largely hosted on like a handful of big cloud providers. And so kind of running through some data that I collected about a month ago, like ETH nodes were on, or the percent of ETH hosted nodes, you had 50% on AWS, 15% on Hetzner, 4% on OVH, and then looking at Solana, you had 42% on Hetzner, 26% OVH, 3% on AWS. And I think sometime around last month, we also saw Hetzner come out and basically make a statement saying that any crypto-related services or apps could not run on their cloud, and it violated their terms of service. And so, like, there's obviously risks here. How do we move forward?
Right. The risk here, I mean, so the cloud providers, first of all, why crypto node, runners or miners prefer cloud providers is because they're easy. Right? They're easy to get started. They're very convenient. I mean, they've matured over time. They've gotten really good, right? They scale well. They've, they've come along a lot, right? And they're manageable when it comes to cost. They're not the least most cost efficient option, but they're manageable if you can sort of like make a case for productivity versus cost, right? Especially in a bull market where everybody's making a lot of money, you don't really care about like the cost, right? Things are changing quite a lot now. But the problem is reliance on a single provider. So it's very, very rare you will see node hosting companies use multiple providers, right? And have any sort of failover between these providers. So disaster recovery becomes a huge problem if you rely on a single host, right? And node designs by design, they do not actually encourage multi-regional deployments because there's always this risk of like double signing, yada, yada, yada. There's inherently a failure in the node design for the most blockchains. I know this for sure in Cosmos nodes that prevent you from a multi-regional deployment, right? And I think that's the bigger risk. Like, there's an argument to be made, like, well, 50% of cloud hosts nodes run on Amazon. If Amazon shuts down Ethereum, you can all move to like some other cloud, right? Yeah, in theory, it's possible. In practicality, you're going to see disruption. There's going to be a several day, if not weeks, levels of disruption with degraded services. The real question you should be asking is that the future we want, a disrupted blockchain? Or like Lido has about 50% of node power, right? It's a pool, granted, but I guarantee you they're hosting probably on a single provider, right? I haven't seen anything to indicate they have. At least it's not public. I don't know the internals, but it's not public that there is a multi-cloud disaster recovery strategy, right? So what like I think the big risk is, well, you have like disaster recovery and just like fault tolerance and failover. And second risk is cost, right? Like if decentralization is expensive, it's prohibitive. And cloud is getting worse. And this is beautiful article by Anderson Horowitz recently called "The Paradox of Cloud Costs, a $1 trillion paradox" or something. And they've studied several companies that they are part of the board, and turns out 50% of every dollar you and I spend on online services like Asana, like Netflix, like uh, uh, Notion or whatever, goes to Amazon or Google. 50%.
The Amazon tax.
The Amazon tax. It's invisible tax that we all have. And guess who pays the bill? I mean, we end up paying because the costs and savings come down to the user, right? And that's one data point. Another data point is there is the death of data centers, right? So before in 2018, you had about 8.4 million data centers. Now you have about 7.1 million data centers. So the hyperscalers are getting a lot more, a lot bigger because there's really, really very, very little options to get cloud-like capability on data centers, right? So you can either have a data center or you can have a cloud. You can't use your data center capacity as a cloud provider. That's the big challenge, right? The convenience is a challenge, not the compute. Right? Even though there are 7.1 million data centers, why do we prefer the Amazon 16? Why? Because Amazon just has a better way to deploy tools, right? So when you have a data center, like let's say colo, right? So for deploying a box in a co-located data center is number one, you go to the data center and you strike a deal. You say that, hey, I want to put a rack of servers in your cluster, and I'm going to go purchase these servers from Dell or wherever you want to purchase, configure them, send it to your actual physical data center, and purchase all the disks, and lease the space in your physical like data center, and have you plug in my computers and and manage them for me, change the disks when they need to, and when they're make sure there's electricity, make sure there's like enterprise grade like internet, yada yada yada, right? And I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars per month. So to acquire a box, a server using this colo method takes about anywhere from 1 month to 3 months, right? So it's very, very expensive. It's very time consuming, but the advantage is it's a lot of capex and there's very little opex, right? So you own the box. You can do whatever the hell you want with it. So it's very cheap to operate once you have it, but to acquire them is very hard. And then if you don't have enough demand, you end up paying for the box, right? So there is this like acquisition problem, and then there is retention, sustainability problem, right? So that's why people prefer versus a cloud provider where you basically pay by the hour. There's no acquisition problem. There is no maintenance of the box. And if you don't like the box, you switch to another configuration in a matter of minutes. And you pay a premium for that, the cloud premium. Right? So it's great if you want to get started, and if you're not sure what you need, and if you want to get quickly, if you want to go to market quickly, you use a cloud provider at a premium. But if you want something permanent like a blockchain, you shouldn't be using, because a 3-month time in a blockchain is worth it because you have complete control over costs and complete control over privacy and yada yada yada. So what Akash comes into play and does, I think, is really enables you to have your own data center, while that gives you sovereignty and control, uh, and sell any unused capacity you have in the data center to people that want to use it, or tap into a larger pool when you want to scale.
Main value proposition that I see with Akash, which is that multi-cloud capability, right? So like, and just the simplicity that comes along with that. You can just choose multiple providers when you're kind of like onboarding onto one of them, and that just increases, the resiliency. And back to what you said about like if any data is lost, you still have like a backup somewhere else. And so is Akash is currently hosting a lot of nodes right now, right? Could you like, are they also hosting like are you able to host like an Ethereum validator on Akash at this time, or is that something that's still in development?
No, you totally can. I mean, I think we're going to show a demo very soon. It's capabilities wise, we have for a little background, we launched Akash platform about a year ago. When we launched, it was ephemeral only, in the sense you any data you store on Akash will only live during the life cycle of the deployment or the lease. So once the lease ends, your data goes away. Or like if there is a restart, there was no like network storage so it takes forever to like sync back. Now we have network storage, which makes it ideal for a lot of nodes, because nodes have a lot of huge, state files, right? Ethereum alone has 300 gigabyte state file, I believe. 300 gigabyte state file, which is humongous if you think about it, right? If you have to like sync every time you have a restart. With network storage or persistent storage, you can sync once and you're good to go. And we're also going to optimize for local snapshots within Akash network itself. So downloading a ledger will not be an extraneous process. It'll be very, very quick, probably way better than Amazon because they're not verticalizing, right? And we are verticalizing very soon. And a big feature that was missing was dedicated IP addresses. This is especially important for protocols that have fixed port ranges for service discovery and whatnot, like Solana. So, and with Akash, so far you were getting dynamic ports because IP address space was being shared between deployments. Now we have IP address leasing. It's currently in test and it should go into production after mainnet, after Messari mainnet, in a few weeks. So, but with that, I mean, you can start testing in testness right now. It works really well. You can get dedicated IP addresses, and there's a whole process for providers to be able to get the ASN blocks. And I learned a lot about IP addresses in the last few weeks. So the providers do the heavy work of like getting you a block of IPs, and you can choose an IP and have dedicated ports. This enables a lot more nodes, like especially my favorite handshake nodes, right? Handshake is essential DNS. Then you port 53, which is a privileged port. And now with Akash, you couldn't get that before, but now with IP address leasing, you can actually have a port 53. And Solana runs on port 8000, 8100, and plus one or minus port range. Now you can have Solana running on Akash. And ETH will run exactly like the way you would run on a centralized infrastructure, right? So the node hosting is coming with a bang. I think IP addresses will complete the solution we needed. And and GPUs are next. So if you have any GPU style proof of work style workloads, I think that's going to be supported as well very, very soon. So we'll have a complete node hosting solution, like a full-fledged node hosting solution. And next would be just user interfaces, right? Like, and we want to develop non-custodial user interfaces. That's very, very critical to access these node hosting platforms. And we have a little surprise at Messari mainnet, our head of product, Anil, who, by the way, is it's going to blow you away with the demo. He came from HashiCorp. HashiCorp, for those of you who don't know, is a leader in infrastructure. I mean, they created this tool called Terraform, which a lot of people use, vaults, and like, so he was actually leading Terraform effort. So he's a very, very, very in tune when it comes to like developer experiences. So we'll be showcasing a tool during Messari talk, Anil's Messari talk. So, and I think you'll get an idea as to where the state of node hosting is, and the non-custodian node hosting is, and I think you're gonna like it.